Can I get this little guy?
Kelly
Okay.
asking us more
Looks like
questions.
we are on. So
What does this mean now?
let's see. If you're here, it's kind of hard to tell. This is our first live YouTube video. I got my guest of honor here. Hello, guest of honor. Come on, let's see some enthusiasm.
Woo!
Yes, they're super excited about this. Okay, so I am Cass. I'm going to be chatting with my dad and Stephanie about all things excitement, conversation. Let's see. I'm trying to set up a couple different screens here, so let's see if we're seen in both
Make sure
sides.
we're looking at our best side.
Yes, which side is the best side? Oh, no, can you see
They're
in
all
both?
good.
All good sides. Okay, so if you're here, say hello. Let's see, we're doing this in a couple different places. But what we're gonna do is, we're gonna, woo! I'm like super tall interviewer, look at me.
I want the higher chair.
Okay, so we're gonna first discuss, we've got my dad and Stephanie, and we're gonna discuss a little bit with people out there that, how do you collectively say widow? Do you both widows, widowers? I know it's different for men and women, but then collective widows.
Widows and widowers,
Okay.
we usually say.
Sharing a little, I asked them to come on here and share a little bit of their story, a little bit about how they met, and kind of the process that it's been for them and their families, and just people have had questions, and I had several people kind of message me some questions, and so if you have any questions while you're watching, feel free to leave them. Let's see, this is so far away. Ashley, hello. So I'm gonna have to kind of get closer. I wonder if I have my phone here that I might even be able to see it a little bit better from. But so if you have a question and I miss it, feel free to ask it again. I've got one little, you wanna wave my little assistant over on the side? She says hello. Okay.
It's a family activity.
Yes.
So Ashley's on right now. Oh, we also
Yes.
on.
Well, you know, I see a handful of names from
Hello.
different places. We got Laurie here watching us. So different names I see popping up, but it's a little bit further away that I can't see as well. Oh, look, we got a little thumbs up. She was asking about that. Is this where they give like the thumbs up?
Good.
So we're actually doing this on YouTube and Facebook. I'm trying to get my YouTube channel started. Okay, if you're gonna stay here, then don't get too much into it, okay? So I'm trying to get my YouTube started. I'm doing some fun things on YouTube, and I really like the idea of having conversations and interviewing people. And so, but I've done Facebook before, and I've already got lots of friends on Facebook, so I thought we'll just do it on both channels. So on Facebook, we get the hearts and the thumbs up. Which
Oh,
is always
good. I
fun.
like to watch those flags.
It's always fun.
Come on,
So
folks. You want more
feel
fingers?
free to give us hearts, thumbs up, comment. I always love to say, hey, tell me where you're visiting from. It helps us to identify a little bit.
There's a heart. Whoops.
Oh, there's a heart. See, like you get excitement from Stephanie over here every time we get a heart.
Oh, there's another one.
Oh, good, exciting. So say hello, let us know where you're visiting from. And then if you have any questions for them as we go throughout this, then I'm gonna try and peek up. I can tell when there's something being said, and I'll kind of peek forward and ask about it. But first, I wanted to have them start a little bit about before they met, their stories of their marriage before they met, and the widow's story, I guess we could say. So you were a widow first. Do you want to tell that first?
My husband and I were married for 43 years, and in 2008, he was diagnosed with cancer, and we fought it for about 6.5 years, almost 7 years before he passed away. And he got really bad about in the last year, and I took care of him the whole time.
That's what I kind of wonder. I guess I've thought this before, is the way, what's worse, the slow and painful where you watch them suffer, or the sudden. And I mean, they're both pretty excruciating seemingly, but have any thoughts on kind of, like you said, you took care of them? I'm sure that was really challenging.
It was, except that I really believe I was strengthened from, another side. I had strength I didn't know I had to take care of him, because I didn't think I could. And yet I did, and I was grateful that I was able to. I was so grateful that I had the strength, the stamina, and the physical capacity to take care of him. It is hard watching your loved ones suffer like that, and yet and you keep thinking you're going to be prepared for it. And then when it finally happens, you're not prepared. I mean, when all of a sudden that emptiness, that spirit is no longer there, it's still a shock. And yet in some ways, I had friends, I had an opportunity. My friends, they get in the family, of course, rally around. But well, why don't we go do this? And I'd say, well, I have to take care of Rob. And then I realized, oh, I don't have Rob to take care of.
Yeah.
That was an adjustment, because when you're doing it for so long, and then all of a sudden, that's not in your life anymore. That's an adjustment.
Right. When you say take care of, I mean, medications, like
Yeah.
probably couldn't lift. And
He didn't have to be lifted until
Okay.
the last part, and I was able to. I had a daughter there that helped me some. Well, actually, all my children were right there. They were amazing. They came from, none of them lived. I had one son that lived in the same town where my husband passed away, and we moved down to a warmer climate, and we're in a condominium. And he was there frequently, but then my other children came in at different times, and we're all there. Came in the last little bit, but I was able to take care of him until one point I couldn't. There was a real, and I couldn't get him. And I said, "Do you know what's happening?" Because he was on, and he said, "Yes, I'm leaving you." That was tough.
Wow. Yeah. How soon was that before he actually passed
That was
away?
about 10 days before.
He was cognitive enough to be
Oh,
aware of kind
He
of
knew
what was
what was
going on
going
and happening. Be able to comment about that. I just wanted to check real quick to make sure you can hear. It sounds like I don't have anybody saying there's no problems. I've had problems with volume in the past. Yes, what's your question? Okay. My daughter has a question about what she was talking about. If it's about what she was talking about. Okay, maybe let's wait then, because we're going to get to that part. Okay, and then you share a little of your experience.
My wife and I were serving an LDS mission in West Africa and had been there for 2.5 years, really well. She had previously had some health problems, but in the 2.5 years we were there, she hadn't had any. And very unexpectedly, had pains that were misdiagnosed, eventually diagnosed as kidney stones that became infected. Still was seen as fairly routine. She was flown from West Africa to Johannesburg for an operation. The operation was very successful, but when it was concluded, her legs down, she had a pulmonary embolism. Immediately to her heart, she went into cardiac arrest and passed away within minutes. So for us, it was just the opposite of Stephanie. Unaware of any problems, developed suddenly. She was 800 miles away. I was expected to stay in West Africa with I was serving with. So I wasn't even by her side, which for me had for a while a lot of guilt around. We flew back to the US for the funeral. Very unexpected.
Right. So starting off a little somber, but I think it's helpful to kind of hear a little bit of background about us and what they experienced a little before meeting. I did actually have one person ask. I feel like now is a good time to ask. Odessa asked, was it hard learning to date again after a successful and happy marriage? And Stephanie, because your husband passed away a little sooner, some dates, not really. Like, what was your thinking? Were you thinking you were wanting to get remarried, or were you thinking I don't even want to?
I really wasn't. It wasn't in my plans at all. It wasn't on my radar. I had gone out on a couple of dates. A gentleman asked me. I met a man through the widowers group that we were with, and he asked me to meet him for dinner one night. And I actually said to him, "Is this a date?" Because I didn't know if it was a date, and I wanted to know if it was a date and how was I doing, because I hadn't been on a date in 43 years ago. So I was doing okay. But that I wasn't thinking about dating. I just no.
Were your thoughts kind of, I'm not sure that I want to, or else just see how things go?
Really want to. I widowers group, and I was helping put these conferences together, and I had a group of friends that we'd go out and they'd come over, and I had a group of friends that I did my quilting projects with. And so I felt very fulfilled and very happy with my family. I was able to travel, be with my children, my grandchildren. So I was thinking life was pretty good.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, saying my prayers once and saying, if Heavenly Father had a plan for me, that if there was someone else out there that he wanted me to be with, and he'd have to basically drop him in my lap because I wasn't looking. Because the girls that I was friends with, a lot of them were quite a bit younger as widows, and they were online and very active online and online dating. And no, I just wasn't interested in that at all. I didn't want.
Okay. And then Dad, what about you?
I decided that for roughly a year that I was going to spend time with family, and was living in Houston, Texas, and at the end of that year had a chance to move to Provo to teach at Brigham Young University. And as I went there, I said, I'm going to concentrate for a year on just teaching and adjusting and not have any kind of relationship. So I hadn't dated anyone. I had made a decision not to go on online dating for no particular reason other than it just didn't seem right for me. I know for others it's worked very well. So I hadn't dated anybody.
Okay, but your thoughts of dating, you were open to the idea, but not necessarily looking.
I felt like it wasn't the right time for me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't against the idea. It's just I needed to do other things first. I needed to adjust to a new place, a new lifestyle, and focus on being a good teacher and a mentor. And I thought, if I do that well, that's enough for right now.
Did you ever have thoughts, this may be skipping ahead a little bit, we'll go back to how you actually met, of, I don't know if betray is the right word, but of maybe even betraying your spouse, the idea of getting married again?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. No.
Okay. Is that something, I don't know, did you ever discuss that with your spouse? Maybe you had, if you had time with your husband, I don't know. But Dad, you answer that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people grapple with that idea.
We didn't really talk about it. I think at one point in time, my late wife had said something to the effect of, that doesn't bother me if you date someone else after I'm gone. She, as I said, had some health problems before our LDS mission. And it wasn't really a relevant topic because we were focused on other things.
Right.
I wallowed a lot in self-pity for the first 7 or 8 months after she passed away. And I had somewhere around 7 or 8 months after that time, kind of a sense that it was time to move on, that I'd done enough of that. And as a part of that, it was a feeling of it's okay to move on. That I was now going to date, but time to stop just feeling sorry for myself and time to start moving forward and set some new goals and to move forward. It was hard for me to think of anything with a long-term future. I kept thinking, all right, I don't have to plan for a year from now or 6 months from now. And I'm a planner, so that was an adjustment for me. But said, I can focus on this teaching experience for 8 months, and after that, figure things out.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
I never thought, like I said, like with Norm, online dating was out. I was happy with my family, my grandchildren. I didn't think anything about betraying Robert. Should I date? He only said to me, and we talked about it. He said, I just want you to be happy. He said, I want you to be happy, and whatever it takes. And I said, I'll be happy. I'll be fine. I'll be okay. The kids, will keep me busy. So, no, I never felt like that.
So I have a question of a friend who is struggling a little bit in her marriage, and she says, kind of, I feel like a lot of people have seen like this is such a happy story, and it's so nice to see after such tragedy and grief, seeing happiness again. But a friend who's struggling has said it makes me a little sad. Like I feel a little bit. It makes me feel replaceable. Like me, my husband could just easily move on, and I'm so replaceable, kind of thing, which makes me a little bit sad. I think there's two different perspectives that one could view that with. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Courage for someone, or just, I don't know, just the idea of, on one hand, you want someone to be happy and live their life, but on the other hand, for somebody who might see your situation as, oh, I feel like a little replaceable.
We've talked about it a couple of different times. I don't think that I'm replacing Robert. I don't think that she's replacing Raylene. We have said we're going to build on the legacy that our late spouses gave to us. It's not putting them aside or putting them behind, so forgetting about them or replacing them. It's instead about adding to what we already have. And so the analogy that's sometimes used, if you had a baby come into your life, you're not replacing any of the previous children. You're adding to the children, to the family you already have. At one point, we had 2 foster children. They weren't our own, obviously, biological children. And at least for me, that gave me a sense of what it means to add to our family, not replace any of our children, but add to them. And I think we each think about, we've shared experiences with our previous spouses. Every once in a while, we've been honest to say, I feel a little jealousy, or I don't always want you to talk about your spouse. But we try to help each other get past that. Our families mean everything to us. And to not talk about our previous spouse or previous experiences would be cutting out a part of our lives. It would be compartmentalizing things in a way that we don't want. So we about our late spouses, we share experiences, and we try to help each other not feel jealousy or envy for not being there or having such great previous experiences, but instead build upon it and say, okay, we're going to keep that foundation. We're going to build higher.
I think Norma always says it the best, but just like the analogy with the children, and I don't think you realize it until you're in a situation like this. Your capacity to love is so great, and to know that. I remember when we were dating, we started to date, and I, oh my goodness, this is so wonderful. And I was just falling in love with this man, and I shared it with my youngest son, and I said, this is just so wonderful. I don't know how to really, analyze this or what to expect. And he was the one that came up with the term, Mom, you're not replacing Raylene, and you're not trying to replace, Nor's not trying to replace Raylene, and you're not trying to replace Dad. This is your bonus time. He said you have a chance to be together and to be better as a couple than you would be individually, be accomplishing more things together. And so we kind of adopted that term of bonus families and bonus grandpa, bonus grandma, and
bonus cousins. She's yelling over there.
And
she's very excited. Cousins. My daughters are very excited about that.
And our children, my grandchildren, are very excited to have bonus cousins. In fact, we got a YouTube video just the other day from one of our grandchildren, my grandchild, saying he wanted to share a video with his new cousins, and not to demean the old cousins, but he wants his new cousins to see this video. So we have felt so blessed that our children have embraced the whole situation and have been so open and kind and loving to each other.
One more analogy. I spent a year working for Stephen Covey, his last year as a university professor before he became a full-time consultant. And he came up with the term abundance mentality, meaning it's not about reducing in any relationship. Somebody gets more, somebody gets less, but you make things better. And during that time, I suggested it's like a pie. If you had a pie this big, it's not just about everybody getting their slice of the pie, but you make the pie bigger. So everybody gets a bigger piece of the pie. We've occasionally talked about that. How do we, in our family, our bonus family, how do we make the pie bigger? How do we have everyone, including us? Because our marriage is not just about the two of us. Our marriage is about our 8 children, their spouses, our 34 grandchildren. And how do we make the pie bigger, this abundance mentality for all 60 of us?
All 60. Is that the number?
62, I think.
Oh, 62. You have a question back there, my friend? What?
For both of them. We talked about it a little bit, but
Come here for just a second. Come sit on the edge of the couch for a moment, and then we're going to get to how they met. Okay.
how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Okay, siblings.
Yes.
Ooh, that's venturing off.
I have one brother and one sister. And I wanted my brother, who's 3 years older than me, and whom, even though we haven't lived in the same state most of our lives, he's always been important in my life. And very shortly after meeting Stephanie, we went by his house because I wanted his perspective, his insight, and to some extent, I'm going to say his approval, although I don't know that I consciously thought it at the time. And they hit it off immediately. They're very different. He called me later and said, I hope I didn't mess things up for you. Everything that I threw at Stephanie, she was able to just hit right back.
I could handle Dean.
Yeah. He's a fun one.
He really is.
All right, she wants to hear your siblings, and then
I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl.
only girl, just like me.
Just like your mom.
Okay, so now we want to hear about how y'all met. So,
Do you want?
She called me on the phone.
My mother always taught
She
me not
reached
to call
out.
boys, and I broke the rule.
that's right. That's how it all started. A phone call.
Well, I was started with my widow's journey. I started doing conferences for the LDS Church for widows and widowers up in northern Utah, southern Idaho area. And I had done 2 previously, had lined up another 3rd one in the fall of 2016. And had, in the meantime, had made the decision to sell my home up north and move down, bought a home in southern Utah in St. George area where I had a son living. And I made that transition through the summer, but was still planning this conference in October. I had a grandson that was serving an LDS mission in the same mission that Norm had been the president in Ghana. And my grandson was still there, is still there serving his mission. But in the meantime, Norm, of course, mentioned he was working at BYU. My daughter in September of 2016 called me and asked me if I had our speakers lined up for these widows conferences. I was having one in the north in October, and I had decided to put one on, or was organizing one for January of 2017 in St. George in southern Utah. And we'd just gotten approval.
Making the widow circuit.
Was making the widow
North and south. What about east and west?
covering all our bases. Anyway, so my daughter, whose son was laboring in the mission field, called me and she said, do you have all your speakers for your conferences? I mentioned I had all the speakers for the northern area conference, but we were just getting our keynote speakers lined up for the southern Utah one in January. And she said, well, President Hill has just moved from Texas to BYU, and he's working part-time, and I think he would be an excellent speaker. Now, I had known of Norm's wife passing away through my grandson and in his mission. So I remembered when that had happened, and I was a little dubious about contacting President Hill. Just a little nervous. I thought, gosh, the guy was a mission president.
But you were flirting on the phone.
I was not. A little playful banter there. No, anyway, so I had my brother-in-law who, now this is getting a little convoluted and I may ask questions later to make sure you're all paying attention. However, Norm's first cousin happens to be my brother-in-law. They're quite a bit apart, different age, 6-7 years apart. So they weren't that
this
close.
is a funny story too, because as I heard about this cousin, I was like, who is this mystery cousin?
Yeah. Kristen kept saying, who's this mystery cousin? We never heard of this cousin. Anyways, so I called my brother-in-law, and of course he knew I'd been doing these conferences, and I mentioned that, you know, President Hill was now at BYU. Would you mind calling him and asking him if he'd even be interested on speaking at
Who asked you that?
She asked Rob.
I asked Rob, my brother-in-law.
Oh,
if he would call
you asked
Norm.
him to call. Okay, got it.
I just wanted to, you know, see how Norm felt about even me
The
calling
idea
him.
of it.
And
I
he
didn't want to, I'm telling you, I didn't want to waste a phone call if I didn't need to call him.
wanted to save the dime.
So anyway, my brother-in-law called me back and said, yeah, Norm will talk to you. So I gave you the
So
time.
I'm going to jump in. and when he called, I said, but I want you to know that I'm not really for it either. I'm not sure.
And he sort of left that detail out when he called me.
Oh, he said he's not against it, but
He
okay.
just said call him.
So you weren't. So why were you a little hesitant to? Why were you like that?
Partially, I felt like my own situation was unique and it wasn't necessarily generalizable. That there was experiences for others to share. Partially, I wasn't sure that I really wanted to share it. It was partially private, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to deal with my own feelings about it in an open, public way.
Yeah.
Which is why
Because I kind of buried things. You know, I was at an equilibrium, and I knew it meant opening things back up that I had somewhat buried.
which is why I felt like I needed to have someone call him first before I called.
Right.
So when I called and visited with him, I told him who I was, and I knew he'd talked to my brother-in-law and was mentioning these conferences. Sort of told him what we had done in the past and the success we were having with the widows and widowers, and that we felt it was a positive experience. And I was aware of the situation, expressed my condolences, and wanted to know if he felt like he could share his testimony and his story with a group in January. I said, I know you have children that live in other areas of the country, and it's at the holidays. And I said, I know you'd be back at BYU, and I wasn't sure what their schedule was at school and when you'd be back at work. But if you could think about it and consider speaking to us on January the 7th, and we'd get back to me. Do you want me to keep going? So
I think as a part of that, I expressed some uncertainty. But I thought this might be a good thing for others, but I wasn't sure that it really fit for me. And that I just needed some time to think about it and gather more information from others who had attended or had spoken. So it was, tell me more. And in that regard, I think I asked for a flyer or something from the.
So is
that
my
previous
story?
conference.
Just a minute. He's jumping ahead.
And then
I had more.
I'm curious because I heard there was flirting on the phone before y'all met a little bit. I don't know, something about a football game.
Well,
women's conference.
that's coming.
Okay.
Okay, so that was on. This was on a Wednesday evening. Thursday morning, I'm working out. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm working out. Anyway, I'm working out, and I get a text that says, Stephanie, I'm really interested in knowing about that conference up north. Would you send me some information? Are you going to be there?
Oh, so that's the sooner one. So you asked him for January, but there was another one in October
that I had mentioned.
you wanted to go to.
Then he was
Okay.
asking me, are you going to be there? I need some
And this
information.
is middle of September.
This was right after I talked to him on the phone.
Okay.
And I did mention on the phone that when I was telling about it, I did ask him, we talked for just a few minutes because I asked him how he was doing, and I was concerned. I just wanted to know, how are you doing? Are you doing all right? And how are you
fellow
doing?
widow friends. We
Right,
help each other out.
sure. Anyway, and so I said, I'll send you the information. Yes, I'm going to be there. And I just kind of dismissed it. I sent him a copy of the flyer and the classes that we were going to have and the presenters. Kind of thought, well, he's just gathering information, because I kept thinking, this man wants to know a lot of things before he commits. So that was on a Thursday. And then I went back east to visit my son and daughter-in-law back in New Jersey, and he texts me again on Monday. And he said, I'm really interested on talking to you about those classes at the conference. Thank you for letting me know. May I call you this evening? And I said, well, that would be great, except that I'm in New Jersey and I'm not going to be home till the end of the week. And he said, oh, yeah, that's great. You're with your family. Let me know when you're home at the end of the week. Okay. So I'm thinking, and I just kept thinking, well, he needs to know. By now I'm kind of thinking, I wish you'd just let me know if you're going to speak.
Because I got to make a plan here.
Right.
I want to be organized. And so Friday, I wasn't coming back till Saturday back to St. George. And on Friday, I get another text and he says, well, if you're going to be landing in Salt Lake, why don't you just stop in Provo and we can talk about the conference? And I said, well, that would be okay, except I land in Las Vegas and I'm going to be going to St. George. And he said, okay, just let me know when you get home on Saturday. And I thought, all right. And then by now I'm getting a little nervous because I'm thinking, he probably doesn't think I'm a real serious person about this. I am a serious person. I am a spiritual person. These are great conferences. Just
If he doesn't want to come, then
I want you to speak, buddy. Give me an answer. So anyway, no, Saturday. So finally, I'm getting ready, and I have my papers and all the classes we'd had in the, for 3 years or whatever. We're having our third one. And everything that we'd had, all the classes, the speakers, positive comments we'd received on our evaluation forms. I mean, I was covering all my bases because I was going to be ready. So I texted him and I said, what questions do you have? And he said, well, I'm watching a BYU game. And I said, well, of course you are, because I texted back, of course you are, because when you work at BYU, they make you watch the football games. And he just said, well, may I call you this evening? And I said, well, I would be watching the women's meeting that night. And he said to me, which was unnerving, he said, perfect, you can watch that meeting and you can tell me all about it. Now I'm nervous.
Take notes.
Well, he didn't say take notes, but I, in my mind, thought, I got to take notes. This guy's going to start, interrogating me about this conference. So I have the thing on record. And in the meantime, I have grandchildren there, and they're kind of racing through the house. And I'm saying, I have pencil and paper out. I'm watching this conference and saying, quiet, Grandma has a test. And he's
studious notes.
Yeah, I was taking notes. So anyway, the kids went home, and I, in the meantime, started watching it again because I recorded it now. Now I wanted to go back to make sure I was getting.
Okay.
And so then he called and asked me some questions, and I was a little.
So the questions weren't just about the conference details, but it was more
first
getting more personal a little bit.
Well,
like asking about when you were watching.
Jump right in here.
Yeah, they started with, since she was deferring our call to the women's conference, well, tell me what did you learn at the women's conference? And I could tell she was a little flustered at the other end and said, well, it was good. Okay, well, tell me one thing one of the speakers said. It was all about the Spirit. Well, that's kind of general and a little vague.
I was nervous. He was making me nervous. I felt like the spotlight's on. I'm sitting on a bench, Anyway.
I was just making conversation.
Right.
It's just the last thing that we texted.
So at what point in the phone conversations, we'll fast forward a little bit, did you feel like it was before you met that you both felt like, I feel something maybe different?
We talked for almost over 2.5 hours that night. And it was just very easy. I didn't edit. I didn't feel like I had to be guarded. He made it so easy to visit with. We just talked about lots of things, like our families, our kids, gospel.
So you hung up thinking?
I actually hung up. This is the truth. It's like 11:30. It was late that night. I hung up the phone and I said out loud, wow, that was fun. Nobody was there,
right?
But I had to just say that loud.
Yeah.
And I immediately went in and texted my brother-in-law. And I thought, because he usually is up late, I thought, well, maybe
his cousin, right?
Yeah, his cousin,
Okay.
his mystery cousin.
Mystery cousin. Got
I
it.
texted, I said, you'll never guess who I've been on the phone with for 2.5 hours, Norman Hill. And I thought, well, he'll get it the next morning. And my phone rang immediately.
Oh.
And he goes, what? And he starts to laugh. And he has a very infectious laugh. And okay, well, what's going on? I said, nothing. It was just very fun. He was a lot of fun to talk to. I said, we had a great conversation. And then after that, he started texting me and I texted him back and we just started texting a lot and then calling. And it was well over 3 weeks, wasn't it?
So 3 weeks before you'd actually met in person.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I have to tell you, I keep a journal.
Okay.
And I actually wrote into my journal, I can't tell you the exact date, but I did write in my journal, I have a crush on a man I've never met. And it was like, because I thought you could tell that he has the cutest personality and he's just so fun. And I kept thinking, I know that I was so not paying attention, I guess, when he was texting me, because my kid said later, Mom, I said no, because it was not on my radar. I never even thought, and some of our friends, the widow friends, would say, come on, didn't you think in asking him that, maybe there's it didn't cross my mind. I didn't go in there thinking, well, I'm going to hit on this guy.
Right.
I just didn't.
You were seeking out a speaker.
I needed to speak.
You need to get organized.
And I just thought I'd tell you folks, he spoke.
Oh, yes. Long story short
sensational.
on that one. And he's speaking again, too.
Yes.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So tell me your quick initial thoughts after the phone. So what I think is interesting is this timeline. They spoke mid-September. I went to Utah the first weekend in October to hang out with my dad for the weekend. But that there surely was something lingering in the back of his mind. But I think he was like, he didn't want to mention anything until he obviously had not even met her yet. But still.
I didn't say much to my children either. We didn't. You almost felt like you were going to jinx it or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think for me, it was twofold. I mean, one is I was trying to figure out about this conference in a very personal way. Did it fit for me? Is this something that I could do and do it justice? And then secondly, I was just dealing with my own feelings of, I felt a spark talking to her. I felt like this is different than just a normal conversation. There's something else that's going on. I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, but it was something that I wanted to know more about, both her as a person as well as the conference. The two of them were kind of mixed up together in that sense, but I definitely wanted to keep the conversation going.
Right.
But to bring up to you, I met somebody that gave me a call and this conference I've never met before.
You had mentioned the conference, and I was like, I think it's a great idea. You're an awesome speaker. And what I love about my dad is he's vulnerable and talk about uncomfortable things. So I was surprised that he had hesitancy in doing this. And I get where he's coming from, still trying to come to terms with his own personal
And
feelings.
it's a tender place.
Yeah. But I was like, go for it. I think you'd be great. Go for it. And he's like,
And your encouragement helped me. And you and I talk a lot. I think you're one of the few people that I like to problem solve out loud. I think out loud. I don't like to be hemmed in talking, and you helped me open up possibilities. And at that point, that's what I was looking to do. Not to shut down and say, here's what I'm going to do. Go do this, go do that. Does this make sense? Take a look at this range of possibilities. Don't jump into anything too soon.
okay, got it. October 10th,
We met.
you met.
I was so,
Columbus Day. So at this point when you're meeting, you're thinking, you were meeting to talk about the conference? Okay, because you guys lived 4 hours apart from each other. You came up to
I was
Provo.
actually, interesting part is I was actually on my way up to northern Utah,
Okay.
southern Idaho, to meet with my committee for the conference that October.
Okay.
So we were meeting
She
and
was
I
just
was
passing through.
passing through. So
I was like a hitchhiker.
I saw this cute man out on the road. Come out, get in.
Let's go to lunch. So you went to lunch. Where'd you guys go?
We started to go.
Because it was Columbus Day, I had planned to go to a place called the Black Sheep, but it was closed.
Yeah, so weird. Okay.
And so there was a place around the corner, a sandwich shop.
Okay. And did you say, did you pay for it like it was a date, or was it like a business meeting? You pay for each other?
Well, I paid for it, but
Okay.
in a business meeting, somebody
Somebody picked it up.
pays.
She was technically the business in that.
And I was actually planning on,
paying for it.
It seemed to me she was doing me a favor, stopping on her way
To
to,
discuss in person. You still hadn't decided yet.
I still hadn't decided.
Okay.
but I had kind of,
So
You said you shook hands. My daughter asked earlier when they first held hands, and they said that day because you shook hands, right?
we shook hands.
a
But
lot
we,
of handshake.
but we pretty quickly got beyond the formalities. I think you can tell she's pretty informal, go-getter, and it was just fun from that first moment. She came out of the car laughing at something she had forgotten, went back to get it. And I thought, I still remember, here's somebody with a joie de vivre, somebody who has a positive outlook on life. She had shared some experiences of her late husband and the situation, and I grieved for her, and yet saw the world for its possibilities, not for its limitations.
Okay.
I like that immediately. I mean, the spark that I had felt talking on the phone, I don't want to say burst into a flame, but it
Let's
clearly
say that.
clearly
I like
got
that.
I like
bigger
that.
and brighter.
Come on, ladies.
Give us some hearts and thumbs
Come
up.
on. Hot darts. This is good.
Burst into flames.
He actually, we shook hands, kind of gave me a little side hug, and then he put his arm, my hand under his arm, like he just kind of took over. And my thought immediately was, he's in charge. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that he
take
just
charge.
took charge of me,
Yeah.
and was so attentive and such a gentleman, and then we walked around over by the temple in Provo and sat down and just visited. And that's another, the conversation just flowed easily.
That too, flew and flowed.
They flew and flowed, and we were just fluing and flowing all day. No, he had to go to work, and I needed to get north. And so then we played kickball.
The second
Oh.
time we met.
Oh, kickball.
She
Wow.
had a car that needed to be
The same week.
work done on it, and it said something to the effect of, my car needs maintenance. I've got a couple of hours. You want to meet in Salt Lake? And I said, sure. I'll think of something to do. And
The two of you
Time.
play kickball?
yeah,
How do you play kickball with two people?
Oh no, let me tell you.
This isn't pickleball.
No.
it wasn't hard.
And I had these shoes on.
Oh, it's
And,
broad kickball.
Yeah, right. At the dealership, he said, I got something planned. He comes walking in, and he's got his, his jogging shirt, his jackets on, and he has a kickball in his arm, and these men are watching him walk through the
The
He says,
dealer?
come on, let's go. Okay, fine. And we went.
There was a park virtually across the street.
How did you decide on kickball? I've never heard this before. I've got questions.
You've never heard about the kickball?
I haven't heard about kickball.
Oh.
How
And of course,
days
every
is that?
time I kicked,
It
my
wasn't
shoe
a date,
goes
second time meeting.
Your shoe goes flying off.
off.
I
We
don't
talked about
think,
the
I don't think I'm going to say for me, I didn't think of it as a date.
Oh,
I thought of
okay, you
it,
thought
We didn't
here's,
pay for anything.
here's
just go
somebody,
play.
yeah, just,
I'll just say it sounds like a random thing to do on a non-second date.
well, it was a park. I didn't want to just sit on a
Someone
park
else helping.
bench. I wanted to do something.
Yeah, I hear you.
I wanted to see
You wanted to hear her laugh a little because
Yeah,
she does have an
and
enjoyable
see
laugh.
how
I'm so
flexible,
serious.
how flexible she.
No. He
Was.
wanted to know what a natural athlete.
She had commented on that as well. I'm a natural athlete.
Yeah, she said I
I
was
said,
postmenopausal.
okay,
I
let's
didn't say
see
natural athlete.
that athleticism come
I
out.
said postmenopausal. You heard natural athlete.
So there was a baseball diamond.
Can you say menopausal?
I
Sure, you can say it totally.
pitched the ball on the ground. After several misses, she eventually hit pay dirt,
No.
hit one up
I
in the air, easily caught.
Okay, so
And then we went to the
kickball.
park and we talked for a while. Then he had to go to school and I had to go back to.
Okay, so you're starting to
Pharmacy
think,
medicine.
so it was a little beyond the conference. We need to accelerate through. So you decided You didn't decide until after. I don't know.
Let's keep going. This
Did
is
you, if nothing else, you've got a recorded history of all of this
Yes.
conversation. So you went to the conference in October.
Yes.
we
Okay.
continue to text and talk.
Okay.
At that point in October, and I think even leading up to it, I realized I can't, for somebody who's so committed to these conferences, I can't say, no, I'm not going to speak. And oh, by the way,
But let's hang out.
let's hang out, let's see each other, let's date. And I think I had spent enough time looking into the conferences that I was satisfied. A lot of people benefited. I mean, I thought at first, is this just a way of dating, lining people up, and an excuse? Conference, which I didn't want to have anything to do with that. When I got over that, then I had to deal with all right, what is it that I'm going to say, and how open am I prepared to be to talk about things that to some extent I had buried, at least come to my own terms with, and just kind of working that through, and actually working it through with her. Felt like this would be cathartic for me, and I'd more put things in a corner than I had fully come to terms with them, and saw this conference as a way of putting my own thoughts on paper in a way that I hoped would really give me closure.
So I think a lot of people are curious to know how your kids responded to the idea of dating someone. You'd maybe gone out, well, Stephanie had gone out on some dates before, without obviously naming names or generalizing. I mean, I guess I know a little bit about our side. I don't know as much about your kids in the early days. It seems like they were fairly accepting of the idea, but I don't know.
Well, those 2 dates that I went on, they weren't too excited about. I wasn't either, so that worked out really well. The 2 dates that I went on
With other guys.
with other men, yeah, there was nothing there, and they were no good.
Were your kids saying, like, we'd like you to date, we'd like to see you get remarried? Was
Our
that
youngest son was. The others, no.
okay?
I
So
mean,
they weren't.
all they said, they weren't discouraging me, but they were just saying, we just want you to be happy, Mom. But our oldest son, he was the one that says, I just don't see you ever getting married again. And I said, yeah, I don't think so. Our youngest son, however, felt very strongly within just months, maybe 5-6 months after my husband passed away. He says, Mom, I just have a feeling that you're going to find someone and get married again. I said, really? And I was kind of like, ugh. And he said, yeah, I just have that feeling. I do. And he's really a spiritual kid. And I kind of dismissed it. And then when he could see that I was interested in Norm, he was, he's the one that came up with the bonus thing. Talking more, and he said, this is bonus time for both of you. Don't dismiss it. Don't try to think you're replacing Dad because you're not. And so they basically, when they saw how happy I was, and that's what my girls noticed the most, they kept saying, and I always thought I was always a happy person. I mean, I had my moments. I didn't have, when Norm said he felt a lot of self-pity. I went through that a little bit. Especially I remember one particular day, I went grocery shopping, and I went early in the morning because, in a smaller town, everybody is there. You don't want to run into people. And I went there, and it was like 7 o'clock when they just opened, and the parking lot was full of cars. And I thought, gosh, but all these mothers forgot milk. That's all I could think of. And I went in, and they were having some big deal sale on soda. Like, I don't know, these big things for $5. And there were carts of people, piles and piles of soda, which we hardly ever drink. And here and this is my little pity party that I was having in my mind, and thinking, my husband drinks and all, he's dead, and you guys are chugging that stuff, and you're still here. You have these kind of moments like, it's not fair.
Right.
Those kind of things. That was a riff.
There you go. It worked.
But anyway, no, when it came down to Norm and I, when we started dating, the kids were very,
They saw
they saw
happy you
how
were.
I changed, and they
Yeah.
said, we didn't, and I remember thinking, I don't know if I'll ever laugh again. I don't know if I'll ever really laugh again. Or I can be happy, but will I really ever laugh? And that's one thing about Norm, is he made me laugh every day. I would laugh and really be happy.
That's interesting to say that, because I think your personality to me is like always laughing, but I've only ever known you with
But
my
I-
dad.
And see, he makes me laugh.
Yeah, that's
I've always
great.
been happy. I've always,
Yeah,
but when you have something tragic happen to you in your life, you think, am I ever going to feel like I can laugh again?
right,
Is life ever going to be happy?
right. That's sweet. It's nice to hear. So kids, fairly supportive, especially once they saw you being happy. Okay, how about you?
I would say ranged from some acceptance to some real apprehension. And it was on various levels. Some had only been a year since my wife had passed away. I think said that it was too soon. Others were worried about somebody new they hadn't met, only heard about a little bit, and was it going to mess up family dynamics? And I thought both of those were legitimate. You know, what is the right timing? There's a sense that traditionally 1 year gives you time to stabilize your feelings and not make rash decisions, and I'd passed that time. I think the family dynamics was a harder one. But among your brothers, there was a range of sentiments. Some feeling it was too long, too short. Others feeling, gee, why do we really need somebody? You seem to be doing okay. Why add a new person who's especially has kids that we're going to have to plan vacations around, birthdays around, going to want things her own way. A lot of concern about unknowns of anybody having nothing to do with her.
None of us had met her. And I think that's what's challenging, is that you had met a lot of her children, almost all of them, before any of us had met her.
Correct.
At all. So there was a little bit of challenge for that. And I know for me, personally, I was excited about the idea. Put off that you didn't mention it to me earlier on, because I feel like I've been supportive. You know that I'd be good with this. But I think some of the sentiments that one of my brothers had mentioned was partly taking away from the memory of mom, of, replacing a little bit, but partly pulling you away from us a little bit. And, one of them said, knowing that you would live in the same town as Dad's going to be going to their kids' soccer games on a regular basis, and not going to be regular basis going to our kids' soccer games, and just thinking of a little bit of the hurt, and I say to them, you chose to live in another city, which anyway, to not have grandparents in the same town. And I mean, that's something we grew up with. I didn't grow up with grandparents in the same town as me. And so it wasn't something that I concerned myself with. But I think there was a little bit of sentiment of, are you going to be spending more time with their family than you're going to be with our family? But something I love the bonus. So we have Andy to thank for that, the bonus stuff. Because I've just thought, one of the saddest things for me when my mom passed away is just how much my mom loves and adores my children. My dad always has as well too, but grandma, that I miss that from my kids, and I appreciate with Stephanie is that she really does invest into my kids. And the first time that we had a conversation with her, my dad was like, I really want you to meet her, can we Skype? And so we did in October, just after that conference, I think it was. Right from the beginning, she knew all of my kids' names even before we got on. She talked to my dad and knew a little bit about what they were, and so was asking them specifics. And we hung up, and my husband, who's a man of few words, a lot of times, knew all of our names. Like, that's really impressive that she took the effort to get to know us and to show she cares. And I appreciate just the love and the hugs that she gives to my children, that my mom around to do that. So I feel in the replaceable sense of, I'm grateful to have someone, in a sense, replace the presence that my mom isn't there to give, and to be able to offer that up. So I've been always very happy about that. And another thing, I remember after we first talked, my brothers were like, so what's she like? And I was like, she's really hard not to like. And I remember my brother said the same thing after he'd met you. She's really hard not to like. And we're like, yeah, she's very likable. It's very, very hard not to like.
Thought that too.
Yeah.
So I don't know, skipping around a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I have to
What
tell you
would we go
quickly.
to?
I
Okay.
don't have much time. But anyway, with
Mhm.
our children, and that was an advantage. The kids lived out in the Wasatch Front, were closer to where Norm was, so he was able to meet with them, except Caroline, who lived, farther away in Montana. But he would meet all the children, and he'd say to my kids, take off the gloves, go for the jugular, ask anything you want. So one night we were at our youngest son's house for dinner. They had just met Norm, and his two oldest boys had spent a half an hour on their computer each preparing a sheet of questions. And all during dinner, I felt so bad for Norm because we had this lovely meal of homemade soup. This soup was cold, I know, because he answered every question. The boys sat there with their papers and fired questions off to him about sports, about his mission, about his work, about everything, basically interrogating him. And he was such a sport.
It was fun.
I want to see that list of
of
questions. Now I wish we had that. We were having our kids ask some random questions earlier too.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get to a couple of questions. Somebody says, where can we find out more information about these conferences?
Okay, LDS Widow and Widowers Conference. If you Google LDS Widowers Conference, it'll bring up a website. There's a Facebook page that you have to actually be invited. It's closed because they don't want,
Just anybody know?
interlopers on there. But anyway, there's a conference coming up that will be held at BYU. They're starting them now, BYU in the spring in May, and
So timing's good. May
Timing's-
17th to 19th
right.
in
The-
BYU.
18th through the 20th. The 18th is a Thursday. It's for everyone, empty nesters, 50 plus, all day Thursday.
And he is speaking at it on
On Thursday,
Thursday,
keynote speaker
in 2
closing
weeks.
session,
Wasatch, Utah area.
May
Wants to
18th,
go.
May 18th at 4:30 at BYU. The
Okay.
19th is for everyone, and the 20th is for the younger ones. Okay,
Okay,
so
look at Cade Kochevar. Jensen and Kochevar here. We love you guys. There's that.
Love you too.
Somebody says, totally loving this conversation, watching from the other part of the world. It's great to know such lovely people. Congratulations to the new couple.
thank you.
Somebody asked, how has blending the families been so far, especially since you have adult children? We touched on that. We touched on a little, I mean, I guess we can fast forward. You dated, your children kind of decided on a date. I don't know if there's anything important to mention here. The blending of the family. So we didn't all meet each other until
that week.
the wedding weekend.
Yeah. And but our oldest daughter, planned the luncheon or the brunch. For
And
the
she and
girls.
I had talked. So she's
Yes.
the one of your kids that I had talked to a couple
Right,
times.
Kristen,
before.
our oldest daughter, had been in in communication, and we planned a brunch for the girls that were here. We had pedicures for the girls. It was a girls' week, so it was kind of fun because they came early. My girls came early. Kristen came early. That was precious.
Nice.
I thought
That
it
was
fun.
really nice. Yeah. I'm
And
glad we did that.
the kids just don't. And it was interesting. We saw some of the film. I noticed like the first.
Okay, I did make a video. If you did not see the video, I made a little documentary style video of.
Okay, so
of the
the
whole
first, so
event.
Friday night, before we got married on Saturday, was our first big, basically the families there, except for the two oldest boys and
Yeah.
Michael. Anyway, and I watched as you're panning the conversations, and the families are obviously separated. The Hatfields and the Coys, not really, but the Hills and the back rolls. And then I noticed by Saturday when we had the waffles and everything, the families were all sitting blended together, talking and conversations, and the kids are all talking. It's fun to watch this change from Friday night, we're all still kind of getting to know each other. By Saturday, breakfast, everybody, by Saturday afternoon, and then evening, everybody's all mixed in
Right.
together.
Blending together.
It was a big question for us as we've talked to others who have remarried after either divorce or a death of a previous spouse. the number one issue is how are adult children taking it? And I think it goes back to the sense of replacement. If you think of this as somebody new who's pushing aside the previous mom or dad, there's going to be problems. On the other hand, if you say, we're making the tent bigger, love it doesn't have to have restrictions and limitations, then there's room for all comers. And that makes a big difference. But it depends a lot on the adult children as well. It's not just what we do, it's what you all do. And you've had conversations with some of her children, both before the wedding and dealing with wedding details. There've been a bunch of texts and emails going through, initiated not by us, but by you as the adult children with each other. And I think that's what makes
Called
it a
the
big
bonus
difference.
family text.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. How you've chosen to see our situation, not just what we do.
Right. I feel like it's been a fairly positive blending. Like I said, it's just the weekend. Someone asked, what about holidays? What about Christmas? And I said, my personal choice is that I like to do our own Christmas. I like to do because we live in such different places, I like to do my Christmas with my family and not do an extended family Christmas. And so I'm not concerned about Christmas. I know you do a family get together the week before Christmas, but I don't know if you're together on Christmas. So that's kind of a non-issue for me. And I think it helps that we all live in such different places. It's not like
And
we're all
it
in the
does.
same town trying to figure out what to do.
Well, Skype and FaceTime make things so much easier than 50 years ago, for sure, as does transportation. So we're planning on flying out to all of our children's homes on a regular basis. We're hoping to Skype on a regular basis.
And not stay too long because we don't want to get sick of this.
So something that's interesting to comment about too is some people so I don't know. I know my dad just turned 66. You guys were born about the same year, right? Just FYI, people always wonder those things. I know like a money thing is interesting to talk about. We talked about the budget thing. So people are starting to ask, someone said, what has been the hardest part of the second marriage and what has been the best part? In a month yet, newlyweds still, but what would you say has been the hardest part? We could touch on the budgeting thing.
Oh.
That is definitely something that
It's
they
hard.
see things a little bit differently.
Oh, this is fun.
So
Pay
far,
attention.
I don't think we found anything that's hard.
No, but I really.
We're so committed to making it work. But certainly, if we were to say, she used the phrase once, I'm a California girl, you're a Clinton boy.
Small town Utah.
That explains the differences among us. I've lived in California. She's now living in Utah. She grew up in a small town or was married and lived in a small town. So we have enough of that crossover that while we have differences in our early upbringing, there's a whole lot of similarity throughout our lives. But I did say at one point in time, we're going to have to figure out how we do things and work up a budget. And I've got some ideas. I'm sure you have some ideas.
Budgeting. Most men do.
We need to sit down and work out a budget. And she was very accommodating for, 5 or 10 minutes. And I could see the
2 or 3.
I could see the wheels spinning. And she said, budget sounds so restrictive. Why don't we think of it as a spending plan instead of a budget? That essence of approaching things. She's looking to see how can we spend. I'm looking to see how can we limit. That probably captures, at this point, how we're approaching things a little differently. But because we're so committed to not letting that else be an obstacle, we see it as just another problem to solve.
And I think we're at the time and stage in our life where it seems like when you're young families, it's all about acquiring things and stuff. And we're both at the point like, we don't need more stuff. Our commitment is to each other and to our children and to our grandchildren. So that's where we want to use our spending plan to visit and be able to be there at, the important times of these children's lives. I don't want to be an absentee grandma, and Norm doesn't want to be an absentee grandpa. We want to be there. We want them to remember that we're involved in the special times when it's important. And then two, that they can see, even their bonus grandma or bonus grandpa, that we love each other, we care for each other. We want them to show them how this can work, and how Norm said, make the tent bigger. Show you how your love can grow, that you can love more than one and have this love in your family, and that, yeah.
Well, and one thing I appreciate is, they're here this weekend in Texas because my daughter got baptized yesterday, and they cut their European honeymoon short a little bit so that they could be here. And so that's something that I admire, that family is important to them. And I felt really bad when I realized that the dates kind of matched up like that. They still had a good 2 weeks, ish, almost. Great. And she did make me feel a little bit better. She's like, we were living on a suitcase for too long. And I was like, okay, good. I feel a little better.
We wouldn't miss this.
But it is something that, is important, and it's important for my daughter to be able to have grandparents who are able to be here. And that's very special to her and something she'll remember. So I appreciate that. One thing, just talking a little bit about the money thing, is just talking to you a little bit ago is, you're kind of at a stage in your life, like, when you're first married, most of us first married, like, we're all broke for a mortgage and school and new jobs that don't pay very much. And so you guys are at a different stage in your life where you came from both financially independent situations where you're not paying much of a mortgage, you're not paying for kids in college, you're not paying for
grandkids in college.
All of those things. You may be kindly choosing to contribute if you choose, but I think so that definitely takes a lot of the stress out of that situation, but I know you still have to kind of discuss.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Money is a big stress for people in marriage, period.
It is. It's different than when we're 25, for sure. I think the one thing that kind of going forward, and we talk occasionally about it, we're not spring chickens. And so health problems are not just possible, but
inevitable.
Yeah, they're inevitable. They're going to happen. We are going to get sick, and we laugh about it and say, we're going to be like Thelma and Louise and
drive off the
cliff together.
Whoa, let me know about that.
Yeah, we'll send you a text.
Okay.
On the way down.
No, you need to do a Facebook
We're
Live.
airborne.
Live. Here we go. Oh, wow.
That's not likely. And medical conditions can be expensive. I think, like anything else, we're trying to say, let's don't worry about the bad things that can happen. Let's look at the good things that can happen. And regardless of our circumstances, let's make the most of them. And so that's kind of our focus. Let's live for today, not just kind of as if this were our last day, but live in the moment without being overly concerned that, at some point in time, we're going to have physical limitations that we don't have now. And we're going to love each other and care for each other in the same way as when we're healthy.
Okay. Someone says, what advice would you give others who are about to embark on a second marriage?
I'm going to say the most important thing that we did was to bring our families along. We talked a lot about it, but not that our children were going to make the decision for us, but that we were going to spend enough time going to their houses, talking on the phone, getting acquainted, that her children felt comfortable with me and that my children felt comfortable with her. And either just introducing or ignoring adult children, I think is a big mistake that sometimes people make. It's because family is everything to us. It was important that we brought family along.
You agree?
Yeah. I do.
Okay, so we're probably gonna end soon. I have a question I'm gonna ask, but if anybody has any questions,
I haven't
I
seen
hear-
more little hearts over there.
I know she needs to see more hearts and validation over on Facebook. I have a friend of mine say that the YouTube commentary isn't working, and I have not seen any comments. It's my first YouTube live, so I wasn't quite sure how to do it. But we are also on Facebook, so if you have questions, hop on Facebook. If you're on YouTube and you have questions, hop over.
Oh, look at all the hearts!
Oh, there's the
thank
hearts.
you.
Okay. Let's see. I can see that there are people on YouTube, but I can't see your comments. Sorry about that. So Facebook, if you have any comments or questions, ask them in the next couple minutes. Then I was going to ask another one. Oh, what?
Lots
Oh,
of
yes.
hearts.
Oh, look
Thank
at that.
you.
We
Love.
like them.
We like to
Feel the love. You know, it is one of those things when you're talking live, you don't know who you're always talking to, but when you can see a little bit of that interaction, I can see some names of some people I know. And, you know, I mentioned missionary, Seracio's mom is on.
When you
Also-
talked a lot about what would you talk about, or what was the question about a second marriage? What things would you do? We spent as
Advice.
much time as we could together in different situations, like in a family situation with our children together, at soccer games or wherever we were, or out to dinner, or I think
Yeah, it wasn't dating in the typical sense.
no, but I think it's important to be in different, I don't know, specific situations, but situations where you'll see how your partner would react in the stressful situation, or if in a situation where, you know, things are great, or maybe not so great, or where you're entertaining, and like at Christmas when the house was full of people, and I was, you know, and I wasn't,
Swinging from the chandelier.
yeah, I wasn't, you know, but you know, you need to see each other and all
Right.
how you're handling all different kinds of situations. So there aren't any real surprises when I hear about these women that get married and think, I didn't know he had an anger management issue. I'm thinking, how come you weren't around him enough to see if he got angry, or driving in a car if he gets upset? You know, all these things.
Right. Well, I remember when you came in February, you said, okay, Kristen, I want to hear, tell me about a time when your dad, I don't know if you said got angry or what the specific word was, when you were growing up. And I was like, you know what, that's a really good idea to, you know, ask questions. And although I could have been thrown off guard, like, oh, shoot, I don't know, how do I approach this? I mean, I really didn't have much to say because my dad is not an angry person and he is even keeled. But I mean, you could have seen from the look on my face from the instance if I was like holding something back or, you know.
So he interviewed my mother, who's
asking-
91, and he interviewed my mother, so she had lots to say about me.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure, yes, asking the parents, definitely more. But I mean, I thought that was a great idea to kind of, I like the interview style thing like you did with, and my dad was saying when she and I met, he's like, she's not afraid to answer anything. And it was funny because when we first Skyped, I was like, well, Dad, I've already asked you lots of questions. Do I pretend that I haven't asked you these questions and ask her anyway? That feels a little kind of inauthentic, I guess. But yeah, I think having a list of questions and asking people around, kind of seeing what they have to say.
The other phrase is due diligence, and I think it's important. Whether it's financial or it's health or it's spiritual or it's family, in addition to just kind of going in eyes wide open, you want to know, is the other partner open to problem solve with you, to deal with your situation and your kids and grandkids in their struggles and their challenges and their issues, or are they going to be somehow standoffish? And one of the things that made Annie very attractive to me is her willingness to invest. Knowing your children's names is just one example, but she brings up at various times, now here's something that we need to do for one of my children. And we've decided we're going to call them our children as well. Sometimes it gets a little awkward, but at least in our mental model, we are saying and implementing and believing these are all our children. Because we start from that place, I think it's going to make a difference, not only in our marriage, but in our extended family.
And we also made the commitment to each other, and we have reiterated it. If we go to forget, if we forget this, is that we're not going to hold back. If somebody, and I can always tell if something's happened, or if I've said something, or a situation has affected him. I know when it has, and he's amazed that I'm that sensitive that know when there's something bothering him, and I know what it is, or you can come up, but we talk about it. So there isn't anything holding back. There isn't any, I'll take care of this myself, or I'll solve it myself, or I'll process. We call it processing. I can tell when he's processing. He can tell when I'm processing, and we talk about it. And that way, that in our relationship, that we do talk about it.
It's a big topic.
And it's important to me. It's important to me that we talk about it, and then we don't just go off and. I remember in the beginning of our relationship, I asked him if he was a poucher, or if he sulked, and he said no. And within a couple weeks, we'd had it. And I said, "You do. You pout. You sulk." He goes, "Yeah, I guess I do." I go, "Yeah, you do." But it's okay, because now we're learning how to process.
Processing. So what is something that you have? That's the money thing. You talked a little bit. Tell the quick story of the European water incident.
Oh.
Are you going to tell it or me?
30 seconds or less.
Oh, 30 seconds or less. Well, I can never.
Then
Well,
you can
never
do
mind.
that.
You can never do that.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
He's long-winded in stories. I know that.
Okay, we went out to a restaurant, very nice restaurant, and we enjoyed water, and we were finishing up our dinner, and I love to be able to sit at the end of the meal. It's just visit. We've been enjoying our evening. And, okay, anyway,
And
so
water costs money.
and
Water costs
It's not
money.
free.
In Europe.
It's not
and
free.
but a lot of the times we were getting water that was just out of a bottle. It was out of a tap. Anyway, this one lady comes up, she goes, "Would you like some more water?" And I said, "Yes, please." And I had thought she'd been using the tap water bottles that we'd have in all these other restaurants. Unbeknownst to me, it was not that kind. She had to open it, and all of a sudden, so she says, "Want more water?" I said, "Yes." Norm says, "No." And I said, "Well, yes, we would." He goes,
Because I had been paying attention and noticed that she had been opening
sealed bottle.
bottled
And
water.
so he says, "No." And I go, "Well, I think I can have some more water." And he goes, "No, no, no." And I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "Okay, we can have some more water." And then she leaves, and I said, "Are we paying for that water?" And he goes, "Yes." And I'm going, "Oh." And so she brings the water, crack, there we go. And it was $5.
It was $5.
And we only drank,
We only drank a small amount because we were about ready to go.
but I thought it was just poured out of this fancy bottle. I'm all about bottles, and I thought it was cute. Anyway, and presentation is everything. So we ended up bringing the bottle home with us. It is such a cute bottle. I wish
First
I
of all,
could
we
show
took
you.
we
You'd
took
love
the bottle with us because it was full, and it took 2 days to finish drinking the water.
We were
because
very selective on when we drank it, because here's
It was
some
a
expensive water.
it was a 2-liter bottle.
So there's a little disagreement. Any other
Well,
disagreements
actually,
or
we laughed
challenges?
about it.
And we're going to use it as a symbol.
Decoration.
Yeah.
Well, not just a decoration, but a symbol. Sometimes we see things differently. That
So when you
I don't like the word compromise, but it's our ability to see things through each other's eyes, to empathize. It will be an example, a reminder for us. See things the same way, but if we're open, if we'll talk about it, we'll figure out how to go forward.
And I dare challenge all of you to go to Europe and come back with a $5 souvenir like that. You can pick it up at
You can
any
just pick
restaurant.
you have a
Cheap
disagreement.
souvenir.
You-
Expensive water, but cheap souvenir.
That's true. Look at it that way. Different perspective, right?
There you go.
You can just bring out in any different perspective situations. First, bring out the water bottle and be like, "I remember."
Well,
the
no, I
water
have a little
bottle."
symbol now. I go like this. This means value. Because sometimes I go, "No, value."
Let's see. Someone says, I don't know if you covered this. How did you decide on where to live after your marriage? I think I read that he lived in Provo and she's from Southern Utah.
We are living in 2 different places, and for now, I'm continuing to teach at BYU, so we'll be in Provo.
Depending
you'll-
on time.
You'll both go to either Provo or
Right.
Southern.
Long term, I think our plans are to live in St. George, and that's something we've talked about. But short term, we'll live in Provo, and I'll continue to teach.
And our home in St. George this is what's exciting for me, is it's big enough that the kids can all come. We wanted a home, that it's a family home. That's what was so wonderful at the wedding. We had in our home. So we wanted, and my family stayed in a hotel. And it was nice because I wanted this side of the family to know this is your home too. This is where you can come to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And I want everyone to feel comfortable there. And that's the kind of home we have, so that the doors are open and family can come.
Yes, sounds good. And you're in a smaller place and you're kind of not sure your longevity or kind of the plan there. Let's see. Someone else asked, I never heard how he proposed. Did I miss that? I did not share that anywhere.
Do we have time?
Can you give me 1 minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Put them in the comments because we're going to wrap it up right after this.
About marriage before I formally proposed. The way that I formally proposed, we looked for a ring together. We found one that needed to be customized. It took a little longer, I was hoping, but eventually we were in Montana at her daughter's house. Her son-in-law, if he could help me find a place that would be out in the woods. I wanted it to be somewhat private. And he very graciously place, got some wood and tinder, a little fire area. I had gotten a dozen roses. I like roses that are not red, some orange roses, and had hidden them behind a tree. He dropped us off at this spot that
Wait, you said this is your
he had taken me to.
Caroline's husband?
Their property.
Had taken me to this spot and dropped us off, and he said, well, where are they going as they sped off? I said, oh, they're just leaving us alone for a few minutes.
He said, well, you got to go look at something. We'll be back. That's what he said to me. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So we're walking along, and she noticed the log and said, oh, look, somebody's left a bag of oranges over there, and started tromping toward them. I said, they're not oranges, and don't go there. Well, why not? I want to see what they are.
He grabs me and he goes, get back over here. And then I realized what was happening. Ball. I just stood there crying.
So it was still daylight, but dusk. I lit the fire, and we talked for a few minutes. And I said, I have something that I want to say. I hope I'm not going to get voted off the island for this. I did go down on the traditional one knee, gave her.
I was a puddle, ladies. I was a puddle.
Gave her the ring and the roses and asked her if she would marry me.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
She said yes. I said, this means the phrase we've used, we're really joining forces, meaning we're bringing our children and grandchildren all together as well. You're saying yes, not just to marrying me, but to joining forces. And she said, of course I know that, and that's exactly what I want as well.
That's great. I love it. I did not know that full story. Kathy Smith's on. This is so funny and sweet. She's loving it. Our good friend Kathy.
Wedding planner.
Hi, Kathy.
Wedding planner. Okay, so we've been on almost an hour and a half. What do you think about that? Time flies when you're having fun.
And we are having fun. Are you folks having fun?
So we talked at the beginning, in case you
Time
missed
for a commercial break.
some of the beginning, talked about how they met, some emotions that they gone through, how, being a widow and the idea of dating. So if you missed some of the beginning stuff. Yes, Kathy says she loves your attitude toward all of this. It's very sweet. I think they are definitely a very good, healthy example. I think they're both have gone into it with their heads in the right place. And I love that they've, wanted it to all be about family and not wanting to, wanting to be inclusive of family from the beginning. And so I think that's great that you can't always predict, I guess, that it's going to be that way. But I think in looking for a partner, that's what you can at least expect or hope for. Just in wrapping it up, I don't see any other questions. I see lots of people saying hello and love the story. But just marriage advice in general. I know people out there most people out there are married, whether it's a second marriage or not, or widow, or divorced, or, advice in general. You guys can each share something and share your experience. One thing that I'll just tell this funny story is they've been good sports about, it has been an interesting role reversal for me at times with my dad. I've felt like his parent at some points in the process, just being able to listen to him and sharing his heart and some of his grief and some of his challenges. And then I even thought it was funny how when we were all at the wedding, all of their kids decorated the car And if you watch the documentary video that I put together, you'll see we had a Pikachu on the back of the car. And I loved how you guys just responded to it. It was just so funny with Pikachu with little cones and all that good stuff on it. You'll just have to watch and see. But just good sports and just funny, the reversal of sometimes your kids become sometimes and just interesting. It's something that I feel like, it's just the actual device doing something. So we're going to close with them just sharing their general advice on marriage that they can share with just all of you out there. I think they've kind of shared a little bit along the way here and there, maybe something you haven't already shared.
About marriage advice, oh goodness. This is one probably many people think, but it's been like my go-to is you have to have a sense of humor. My goodness. You have to laugh and don't hold back as far as, like we were mentioning about, don't take it to yourself or to your bedroom and sulk and stew about things. Be willing to laugh at yourself and yeah.
Well, I think that's great. I think we all sulk and stew at times. And I think sometimes we think we want to punish our partner for one reason or another, or maybe we don't want to fully open up about what we're frustrated about, mad, or that they're not going to care. And I guess I've seen.
And it's good that you establish, like, if this isn't a good time, I remember if we just say things like, well, this isn't a good time to talk about it. And Norm said to do that with me because if there's a problem I want to talk about right now, and sometimes let's just wait a while, and then I'm good with that. I'm good. I think if I'm not upset. This week
well, then they sweep it under the rug and then it never gets talked about. I'm not a fan of sweeping things.
No, don't sweep. Yeah,
don't sweep. Be open about your frustrations and kind about them, but.
And Norm, I don't believe you had anything to say, right? I'm sorry, he's finished. He doesn't have a thing to say.
Scene closure.
No, what's your advice, dear?
There's always going to be mistakes in marriages. Forgiveness is a hard thing. And we like to say, forgive and forget. It's a much harder thing to do, small or big. And you go back to sulking. My first reaction was to be defensive and say, no, I don't sulk, or to say, you do as well, and point out examples. And somehow, at least with that specific example, I had to say, you're right. I do sometimes sulk. And it's not something that I like about myself. I don't admire that. And I want you to keep calling me on it. When you see that I'm withdrawing, I'm sulking, not in a public way, in a private way, I'd like you to say, you've said that's something that you want me to help you with. I'm there. I'm here right now. You're sulking. And we try to do that with each other. There have been times when either she said something that I took in a hurtful way, I've said something she's taken in a hurtful way. I think it's that willingness not just to be open, that it starts with that, but to truly be forgiving. And it's not like we've fixed this. It's more like we recognize it's very important. And it's individual, and we use the phrase with each other, you have to earn your stripes every day. There's never a time when you say, we've got it made. It's an illusion to think that. Instead, to say, every day I start at zero, and I've got to earn my stripes. I've got to earn them with her. I've got to be willing to have her suggestions be seriously considered. And I've got to be willing to truly forgive and move on. I think it's a hard thing to do. There's no magic bullet about it. seeing it as an aspiration makes a difference. And for us, makes it a more likely realization.
Okay, very good. I like that. Earn your stripes every day.
Every day.
Okay, hearts, thumbs up, anyone? I think we're going to end this. It has been a good healthy dose of time. I've enjoyed it. I've learned some things. I'm gonna sit. She wants to say
And we'll
hello.
see you in a year.
Yes, we're gonna recap this
This
later.
is going to be an annual event.
We're gonna do
You
a-
want to tune in.
A follow up. More advice. What have you
I'm thinking
learned?
of semi-annual.
Oh, can we have it every 3 months? We'll be
We're
here.
gonna want
Once
to
a
hear.
week.
We're gonna write down when you have
Is this going to be a reality
disagreements.
show? Can we have it on television?
Disagreements so we can hear about them.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Please have us back.
Yes. So thank you for those of you who joined. If you missed any of it, you can always go back and kind of bring it back from the beginning. But I just thought it would be a fun thing to do, to just kind of bring them out. You guys can get to know their personalities. Their personalities are really fun, and just don't do it justice in the shared and all that good stuff. But you can go. I'm going to leave a link if I don't already have it I did write the 3 blog posts about each of them, which I sent to my dad each time. I said, "Is this okay? Can you approve it? Anything I need to fix?" And he sent back, "Well, it looks like this is spelled wrong, and you need to put a comma here." And I'm like, "You approve?"
And I loved it. Instead of writing the Times in the morning, I read Kristen's blog. It starts my day.
And hey, I love that. I posted the one at 1:53 this morning, and she saw that.
I
She's
noticed
like, "You
that.
were up really late." And I said, "I know. I really wanted to get it out. It's okay. Just sit down." I really just wanted to get it published and out there, and especially I want to do it before I knew we were going to do this today. So if you read the blog, there's 3 blog posts and the documentary video that I put together that you can see on my site, kristenduke.com, or the YouTube channel. So thanks for joining. Everybody wave goodbye.
Bye.
Farewell. Let's see. I'm going to stop it over here. Thank you all. They all say thank you. This was fun. Want to see if they're still hugging and laughing next year.
We're
Yeah.
hugging and laughing, and the jokes are going to get better.
The jokes are going to get better.
More
Okay.
polished, for sure.
We have to kiss
Oh,
more. Here we
kiss.
go. We're kissing. Is it still on?
Yep, it's still on. Hurry, I'll finish it with the kiss.
Okay, here we go. Oh,
Okay.
I think there's some.
And there's nothing wrong with the kiss.
And bye-bye.